Welcome to the Forum at Holy Communion, a long-standing conversation about faith, life, justice, arts, culture. Each week, we will premiere a conversation on our channels, and then on the following Sunday, we join in the conversation with Q&A and a chance to engage on the topic. We're so glad you have joined us. Welcome to the Forum. My name is Mike. I am one of the priests at Holy Communion. We get together usually about every week during the program year to have a conversation about life, about faith, about politics, about stuff that has come up. And given where we are at the moment, it felt like the most important thing to start our spring semester of the Forum off with was a conversation about Omicron and COVID and church and what we all can be doing. Holy Communion has been really blessed to be have a lot of resources in terms of really knowledgeable people in our congregation. As a priest, I've been really thankful for the folks who have been advising me and the vestry on our practices. Dr. Alison Nash is, I don't think we ever made you formally the chair of that committee, but she's sort of the dean of the committee in terms of when Alison says something, everybody listens really closely. So she and her family have been working in pediatrics and public health in St. Louis for a couple generations now. And she's just a really trusted voice. And that's true in our congregation. It's true in wider St. Louis. So I've been incredibly grateful for Dr. Nash's conversation and her advice to us. And Paul Mensah is with us as well. Paul is a vice president at Pfizer who works with the vaccine team and with the drug therapies teams. And I've also had some really great conversations with Paul, and there are a lot of questions coming up right now around vaccines and drug therapies. Paul's done some really informative interviews for St. Louis Public Radio and other outlets. I thought it'd be great to have Paul come in. Paul's also a parent of kids in our church school, and the church school is affected right now. So we're in the midst of some good conversation. So welcome to both of you, and thank you. Dr. Nash, I wonder if I could ask you first to give us a picture of what's going on right now in St. Louis, specifically with Omicron. What are you seeing in your practice, hearing from your colleagues?
Yes, well, what we're seeing here in St. Louis is being mirrored across the United States. We're seeing a sharp increase in cases, a sharp increase in hospitalizations, but in particular, which is different from previous increase, with Delta wave and the other, Delta variant and the other variants, we're seeing an increase in hospitalizations among children. So that's something new. And so what's happening is we're seeing that people who have been vaccinated are getting this, but they're not getting particularly sick. By far, the very ill patients are those who are unvaccinated or young children who are too young to be vaccinated. So and I'm seeing a large uptake in positive tests in my patient population. And so it's been a pretty busy start to the new year.
How are your colleagues doing? How are things in the medical field? And you're talking about a rise in cases in your own practice, and how are folks doing?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing are more healthcare personnel being affected. So then that means they're isolated and can't be at work. So then our staff is short, which makes it just more difficult to provide the care for the patients that need it. So that's an issue across our city, across our state, across our country.
It's hard right now. I would say, for the church, keep praying for your healthcare workers. Pray for teachers, pray for everybody on the front line, but especially the healthcare workers right now. we need them desperately, and it's real hard. Can you talk about kind of what are the tools that we have and what are the sort of upgrades that Omicron has required?
So I always say that vaccines are the most powerful tool that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I mean, we want to encourage everyone who can get vaccinated, who's eligible to be boosted, to do it. You know, reach out to your trusted healthcare professional with questions or advice. Go on the CDC website. You can follow the CDC on Instagram and get moment-to-moment updates. So, you know, the information is there. Please reach out and ask so that you can make the choice to take the vaccine. So that's really the main thing. And then with mask wearing, you know, there's some conversation, you know, there's recent studies that are recommending masks, not just the cloth mask, but cloth and surgical masks to provide better protection, or the KN95s and it's really all about the fit around the nose and the mouth. And it's about the permeability of the material.
I got to say, we upgraded the masks we offer at church. We got about 1,000 of the KN95s now. I partly like them because I don't see them sliding off people's noses quite as much, right? Because they got that bridge. But Chester, our deacon, really doesn't like them because he says it's harder to breathe through this. And I had to say to Chester, yeah, that's part of the point, my friend. That's part of the point. He's been wearing his dutifully. I've been amazed, you know, there's all sorts of questions out there about the masks and about like, there's different approval agencies and things like that. We just finally, 2 weeks after I ordered them, got our first delivery of, there's not like an approved KN95 for kids, or they don't do the same rating. Is that right? What are you telling parents of kids about particular masks for kids?
So what I'm really recommending is that the mask fit properly.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, because again, we're talking about, can you afford to get a mask?
Yeah.
You know, we want you to wear something.
If there's a question of affordability, I just have to say, if you know, like you're related to Holy Communion at all, reach out to clergy. We will help out any way we can, making sure that your family has what they need at this moment. So please don't, I mean, like a plug into that, do reach out to me and Julie. And if you're looking for, you know, another family who's found masks or things like that, man, we got some scrappy people that know how to use the deep recesses of waking up at 2 a.m. to order things from Walgreens.com right at restock and things. So reach out. We're finding some of that. I want to pivot for a second on the vaccines. We made the decision back in fall as a church to ask people who are eligible to be vaccinated. I was kind of amazed. I didn't really, it seems like such a divisive thing right now in the country, which really just confuses me, but the church writ large responded well. I had far more people that responded by saying, I feel safer at church with this in place than I did without it in place. But we are hearing a couple of different things around vaccine hesitancy, not folks showing up to church who are vaccine hesitant necessarily, but we've got some grandparents in the congregation that have grandkids that aren't vaccinated, and they're trying to figure out how to talk to the parents of those kids. We've got people in the church that are wondering about family members who are talking about medical exemptions. So I wonder, this question is really for both of you. Paul, since you're working with Pfizer and are kind of, what are you all saying to folks who are still vaccine hesitant or who have interesting opinions about who ought to be getting the vaccine?
Well, Mike, first, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. I think it's great for the Holy Communion community to be doing this thing. You know, I mean, I think vaccine hesitancy has been around for a long time, but you know, I think it's important for people to know that vaccines are given to healthy people, right? You don't give vaccine to people who are sick; it's too late. Yeah. And so you typically will give it to healthy people, and with that in mind, the safety bar is much higher than someone who is sick that you're giving medicine to. So there's a thorough investigative process to through that whole thing. I mean, people have various reasons for not wanting to get vaccinated. I can't figure out why and why not. I would venture to say most people have gotten some vaccine at some point. When you're born as a kid, you're given vaccine. There are lots of vaccines given to childhood. You're given vaccine to attend school. My daughters, Ava and Olivia, have been vaccinated way before even the COVID came about. It's hard for me, especially in a pandemic, to think about the basis for not wanting to get vaccinated. The vaccines have been given to multiple, I mean, in the early phases, right after the clinical trials, which, at least for the Pfizer vaccine, almost 50,000 people got it during the clinical trial. But since then, there's been millions, billions of people who have received the vaccine. And I think the safety of it is well recognized. Now, I'm not a physician, obviously, but there may be people who may have legitimate reasons for doing it. And for those, I encourage them to talk to their doctors and get insights on it. But for those who are not receiving the vaccine because of the noise they hear on the internet and all these crazy, I would say, things that they hear, I would encourage them, like Dr. Nash said, look on the CDC guidance website. There are lots of information at a really respected site that can provide some significant answers to some of the questions that people have. But the vaccines have been proven, and at least the risk benefit of the vaccine has been well established, and they are saving lives, and really they are our only way out of this pandemic.
What can you tell me what's going on with the littles and vaccines and what's happening right now?
Yes, let me start off by maybe telling you about what the vaccine is authorized for today.
Yeah.
Right. So right now, anyone over 5 years old, 5 to 11-year-old, can get vaccinated.
And that's Pfizer specifically, right? Because the other ones, yeah.
I think the other two vaccines, Moderna's and J&J's, are approved for 18 years and up. Pfizer starts at 5-year-old and up. And anyone who is 5 years old can get vaccinated. And my Ava has gotten her second dose about 2 weeks ago, so she's feeling really good about it. Anyone above, I think 11 or 12 years old, which Olivia falls into it, can now get their booster. Okay, because it's been a few months since they got it, and Olivia got her booster a couple of weeks ago. Now, the way we do the vaccine is that as we're doing the clinical trials, as you get to younger patients, younger kids, you do them on a dose basis. So you don't give the same dose to the adult that you give to the kids. And what we did, if like the 5 to 11-year-old are given a dose of 10 microgram dose. And for 12 and above, have 30 microgram dose. So in the study with, I think, 6 months to 5 years old, they were given 3 microgram dose. What the study indicated that I believe from 6 months to 2 years, it appears that 3 micrograms is working really well. For 2 years to 5 years, it's working, but the response is not as robust as it is. And so we continue on with the study with a third dose. And the expectation is that we should be submitting the data pretty soon. And we are hopeful that sometime in the April timeframe, the FDA and then by the CDC will authorize the use of the vaccines for anyone from 6 months to 5 years old.
So you probably can't tell me, what but you're given reason to hope. It's the idea is that the third dose is what will be needed for that age group rather than adjusting the dosage and probably having to restart the study.
Yes, I mean, I think the current study is really focused on giving a third dose. Now, I mean, I've gotten my third dose anyway, and the response is it's there. I mean, before you get into the trial, you set predetermined criteria to meet, and I think the intention was we were always going to get a third dose anyway, but based on the initial data to really kind of get it to the end. the sense is the third dose will add for it. So we've started the study, and like I said, we should be submitting relatively soon, and we should get approval in the March timeframe.
Like I said, it took a minute for me to get past the, because my horizon is very like, I want Silas to be vaccinated, but when I realized it was like, oh wait, but this means like we're really being serious about science with this. Like this, we're not messing around. We're not just rushing this thing. They didn't get the result they wanted, and so they're pushing to another. That for me was helpful. If still, I still am looking forward to the day when Silas can be vaccinated, but the world has also shifted around it, right? Like with all the different variants and things, what the vaccines are protecting against is shifting around what's being studied, right?
Yes, I mean, the initial vaccine was made targeting the wild type, the Wuhan, the one originated from Wuhan. And as you know, in many ways, due to the fact that we haven't gotten complete vaccination, the virus, is trying to survive, and it's evolving. And Delta became a big deal, and Omicron became an even bigger deal. And so, as you're studying people over time, you are studying the different population, right? And now Omicron is the biggest thing. So most of the vaccines are against Omicron. Now, it is, I think we reported even for the adults that after 2 doses, the response wasn't very good. And it was only a 3rd dose that really gave it a higher response. And so that's why we've encouraged everyone to get the booster. We are, I think we've made it public, working on Omicron specific vaccine. We expected, our CEO has been public with it, to be out in March. And we will determine at that point, whether that's the way to go or whether the current vaccine works best. So we are starting clinical trials with that right now, and we'll compare the two.
I just want to, so we're in January. We first detected Omicron in November, and in March, you're going to be doing clinical trials on this vaccine.
In fact, we are starting clinical trials at the end of the month, early February.
Crazy.
But that's the beauty of the mRNA vaccines. We're able to react very quickly, and we have the foundation for it to be able to build that. And so we can react quickly. In a way, it's almost like the flu, right? People react. There's more time with the flu, obviously, to react to it. But this virus is evolving, and with that evolution, we need to stay ahead of it. Now, what we want to do is, if we make an Omicron vaccine that not only does it work for the Delta virus, but will also work for the future variant, right? And so there's a lot of work to really make sure that if we do switch, and it's a big if, the current vaccine works really well, and if you're boosted, you are protected. It doesn't do as great. Omicron is highly infectious. And the current vaccine, as you know, there's been lots of breakthroughs. It doesn't do as great as preventing infection, but hospitalization and severe disease is doing what it's supposed to do. And we hope in the future we'll be able to, if Omicron is proven to work, the Omicron vaccine is proven to work, it should not only prevent hospitalization and severe disease, but hopefully also help with infections as well.
So what does the future look like? Like, what is Omicron right now is just, it's crazy how many people are testing positive, and how long do we think that goes on for? And what are we looking toward in the next weeks and months?
Well, I've heard recently on the news that Omicron may be peaking on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But, this is a big country, and the places that haven't had as much of it will probably go through and peak. So I think it's still going to be hugely impactful in a negative way over the next few weeks. And so again, I know we've said it enough. Vaccination is really the best cause for it. And I think until we get to a point where we have a lot of vaccinated people, this COVID virus, they just keep mutating. I heard recently that they've found a new variant that's a combination of Omicron and Delta somewhere in Europe. So who knows what's coming? I think we are, as a community, the world community, I think we are getting more and more tools to help fight these things, but it appears this might be here to stay and could be endemic. And so people who are not used to vaccination now, they should probably get used to it, but because the next one may be worse than Delta or worse than Omicron, you just don't know. And so we just need to kind of be comfortable with getting the best treatment out there, which is really getting vaccinated.
Dr. Nash, I love your response.
Yeah, so I guess I'm hopeful that we're gonna, the peak is coming at least by the end of this month, and then we're gonna be on a downward trend. But again, that's just me hoping.
Yeah.
The one thing is because we have such a high case rate, then the point that Paul made is that, there won't be any, fresh meat for the virus to infect. So then obviously that's why it kind of peters out. We could also accomplish that with people getting vaccinated and, getting to herd immunity, which is probably going to be needing to get over 90%, of the population vaccinated. And then it'll be interesting to see again, so what does endemic look like, and, how often are we going to need to get a vaccine, or are we going to, so, it's going to be an interesting year. That's all I can say. We just kind of.
What about the other mitigation efforts? Do you see a horizon point at which we can look forward to eventually, like less masks, less infection rates, that kind of thing?
Well, not anytime soon. We've got, we went from having, 4% positivity rate to like 85%, right? So we have to get that way back down. And then again, see, as Paul was saying, if there's another variant that's coming out, what does that look like? We know that that masking is one of the best mitigation tools that we have, masking and the distancing. I think we're going to be living with that for, at least till the summer.
Yeah.
And then it just remains to be seen.
I have to admit, I miss seeing people's full face and stuff like that, but the mask has not only helped with COVID, it's also helped a lot with flu and other stuff that, usually come around. So,
Yes.
it's been, I'm fully vaccinated, I'm fully boosted, but I still wear my mask, and thankfully I've, stayed away from getting any of this virus. But yeah, it's, you get used to it. The kids wear it at school all the time. They get used to it. They come home, they take it off. And, I think, at least for me, until we get to a point where the virus is not out there infecting so many people, I still prefer to put on my mask just to be on the safe side.
So one of the burning questions with Omicron is just everybody going to get this? Yeah. Is everybody going to get it?
Well, I hope I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get it. But again, if you get it and you are vaccinated, you'll be fine, right? For the most part, you'll be fine. And so, yeah, I'm trying not to get it.
I'm with Paul. I'm wearing my mask, and I encourage everybody to keep wearing it until, we get to a better place with this,
There will be a future. There will be a future where, people are either vaccinated or they've gotten it, and we get to some endemic state where the mask will not be normal, and we'll have plenty of antiviral. If someone gets sick, they'll do it, and we will get there. But we're not there yet, and so until we get there, I think it makes sense to wear your mask.
Yeah. The other thing that really, I remember, I think I've told this story before, but I had a seminary classmate from Hong Kong who one day showed up in class with a mask on. And this was way before, I've been a priest a while now. It's kind of scary, 10 years. But this was more than 10 years ago. And she showed up in class with a mask on, and one of her classmates from the South started kidding her about it, saying basically like, what, you worried I'm going to infect you with something? And she turned, she said, no, where I live, it is the norm that if you have something going on, a tickle in your throat or a runny nose or something, you put a mask on for the sake of your classmates, right? She's like, my mask is for you, not for me. And it was this game. I mean, like a whole bunch of people told that story from that class in the early days of COVID, right? But that's, I hope for that future with masks, right? That someday Silas has a sniffle, no fever. We're not worried about an active pandemic. And so we say, yeah, he can go to class, but we'll send him with a mask. You know, that's my hope on mask wearing, I think. We're testing clergy and choir members, and we've really reduced the choir, but people who are singing, people who are reading, and we're encouraging folks to get tested if they can. Can we talk about the role that, you know, especially rapid tests, but what's going on with testing? There's so much with testing right now.
That's, oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That's making me lose all my hair. So I'm be like Paul. It's a good look. No, I'm teasing. But I think recommending a test, you know, and it's more so for your own comfort level. I think it's important for people who are going to be maskless and giving the sermon, singing, you know, doing the lessons. That makes sense because they're going to be without their mask. But for the congregation, I think it's a good idea to say, test if that makes you feel more comfortable. But the most important thing is be vaccinated and wear your mask and keep your mask on. And
I think it's important, you know, if you test negative and you're still not feeling well, you shouldn't be going to church, right?
Yeah.
And so the most important thing is making sure that you feel like you've recovered, and then, you know, put on your mask. But if you're not feeling well and you test and it's negative, I'd still be worried about you going to church because, you know, you never know if it's a false negative.
We had somebody who emailed me with exactly that. I won't give you too many details, but said, well, I had a negative rapid test and my PCR won't be in, but I'm not feeling real great. And I said, well, then stay home.
Right.
And Sunday afternoon, I got an email, well, my PCR came back positive.
See.
So it's hard. I mean, the testing landscape is hard. We are going to screen folks that are projecting their voice from the front while we can get tests. We were able to order a big pack of tests and they came pretty quick. And I'm working with some interfaith colleagues who we're reaching out to the health departments and trying to get churches and synagogues to be test distribution sites. Supposedly when this big bunch of tests is coming down the pipeline, they're going to need, and so we're trying to see if we can be helpful with that. In the meantime, I'll say the same thing to folks. If you're having a hard time getting a test and you really need a test, we have some people in the congregation. They're the same people that were really good 9 months ago at getting vaccination appointments for people who are eligible, but were having a hard time getting vaccination appointments back when those were rare. So if you really need a test and you're having a hard time getting a test and your doctor's office is swamped and can't order it, let us know. We'll see if we can hook you up with a test finder buddy. But we got a few of them that are pretty good in the congregation. So we're happy to be a community and support each other the ways we can. We also have done meal deliveries for quarantine families and help people get groceries, all that kind of stuff. So we're at a phase where we got to be community for each other yet again. And that's thankfully what a church is for.
I just want to say that this too will pass, right? This is not going to be life as we know it forever. And I know it's challenging in so many ways to follow the guidance from the CDC and others and stuff like that. But if you can, I mean, not even if you can, you should make every effort to follow the guidance. Getting vaccinated, wearing your mask, making sure that you are not only protecting you, but you're protecting others at church, at home, and stuff. So it will pass, but I think it's a communal effort. We need to work together to make it pass fast. So I encourage everyone to take the politics out, block out the noise, and go to the right sources to get the right information for your questions.
Yeah. Dr. Nash, I'm seeing nodding. Anything else you want?
Well, I just ditto. I mean, I think again, it's getting the right information so that you can make the choice. And I think it's important that it's a choice, but but it's not just for you. It's what you're going to do is going to help your fellow man. And so I think that's, we're all in this together, and we want to come out on the other side, and we will, but we need to care for each other as we go along this road.
Yeah. No, I appreciate both of you taking the time, and I know you're both working really hard right now in the midst of all of this. So and both of you have been working really hard since the very beginning of this. And so I just want to say you've both been in my prayers. I know you've been in the prayers of a lot of people in the congregation, but we're just so grateful for the work that you do, the work that your teams do. And thanks for spending this time with us. In the next couple of weeks, I am gonna, we've got a couple of mental health care professionals that I'm in conversation with. We'll talk about mental health and COVID as well. Decided to save that as a separate conversation, but stay tuned. We won't be doing a Q&A on the front lawn. It's just too darn cold right now to all hang out on the front lawn on a Sunday morning. But one of the things I think you've heard today that I think is really important is if you've got a specific COVID question, it's really important to have a good relationship with your medical care provider and to be in conversation with them as well, because as much as we can talk about the general conversation around COVID and general advice, what you and what your family are facing, it's really important for you to lean into that relationship with your medical care provider. So, make sure they know how much you appreciate them too right now, because they're having a hard time in the midst of all of this. So, Paul, Alison, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for the time. And I'm sure we'll talk more.
Yes, thank you.
Right.